Hello, welcome to the Hampton Law Firm. I'm Jeff Hampton, and today's video is going to be talking a little bit about drug cases and statements that you may have made to the police. If you gave a statement to the police and they did not read you your Miranda rights, can your drug case be dismissed? All right, so if you'll wait around to the end of this video, I'm going to also give you a free ebook, What to Do If You've Been Charged with a Drug Crime in Texas. Now today I want to cover the ins and outs of Miranda rights as it relates specifically to drug cases. And what do I mean by that? I have a lot of clients who will contact me and say, I was in a car, 3 or 4 other people were in the car with me. They got me out of the car, because this is what cops do all the time. They get you out of the car, and they begin to question everybody individually, okay? So if they get you out of the car and they start to question everybody individually, maybe they didn't have a whole lot of evidence to establish whether you possessed drugs, whether you literally intentionally or knowingly exercised care, custody, or control over those drugs. Now you say something to the police, but they didn't read you your Miranda rights. Can they prove possession now? Can the whole case be thrown out? All right, so that's what we're going to cover here today. Let's jump right into that. So the real question is, people say, so if I spoke to the police, they didn't read me my Miranda rights, can the case be thrown out? It depends. Let's take a look at Miranda rights as it relates to your statement. So it's important to understand Miranda rights by themselves only cover confessions, okay? It doesn't have to do with everything else on your criminal case. Miranda rights only have to do with things that you said, all right? So what do I mean by confessions? Well, if the police officer detains you or looks to arrest you, they are trained to try to get information from you to try to make their case stronger, right? And so in the process of doing that, let's assume for a moment that you did speak to the police. Let's just assume. Let's say you spoke to the police for a few minutes. Now we need to really dig into the Miranda rights because that's critical in your situation. So if the police officer in your case did not follow the law as it relates to Miranda, then all of your statements would be excluded from evidence, and now the police would only be able to go off of the other surrounding circumstantial evidence that they might have. So you know the basic Miranda rights, right? People see it on TV. They understand you have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney. Anything you say can be used against you in a court of law. And that's very good. It's very important that you know those rights. But some people say, well, okay, if they didn't read me those rights, when does it matter? Well, if they didn't ask you any questions and there was no discussion between you and the officer when they looked to arrest you, Miranda rights don't matter because it only has to do with statements that you gave to the police. But what if you did? If you did speak to them, failure to read your Miranda rights under the circumstances I'm about to give you absolutely will exclude statements that you've given. So what's the requirements? Number 1, for Miranda rights, you must be what the law says in custody. You must be detained or in custody. What do we mean by in custody? In custody means you are not free to leave, okay? As an example of that, if they put you in the back of a patrol car, or if you're handcuffed, or they put you in the back of a patrol car, you're detained, you're not free to leave. If they start asking you questions at this point about, hey, they get you in the back of the car and you're in cuffs and they say, hey man, just be honest with me. Whose drugs are those in that car? Just tell me. It'll go well for you if you'll let me know. If they didn't read you your Miranda rights, anything that you said to them, that's not admissible potentially in court, okay? So that's the first thing. Now, what if they didn't detain you? What if you're just walking down the road and a police officer walks over to you and starts speaking to you and y'all just start having a casual conversation? Well, now, in theory, you're free to leave, okay? You are not detained. So as a result of that, if you just start having a conversation with a police officer and that leads to them being able to gather evidence to then arrest you for drugs, for possession of drugs, that can be used against you. So it's very important to understand the rules of when Miranda rights actually apply. So little lesson here. This gives you a very important lesson why you should never answer questions from a police officer, and you should always exercise your Sixth Amendment right to counsel. You can always tell a police officer, officer, I understand, I would love to answer your questions, but I'm going to need to speak to my attorney before we have a conversation. That way you protect yourself in these situations so you don't have to do the analysis that we're doing here on the video here today. Okay, so number 1, you must be in custody for Miranda rights to apply. Number 2, you must be in the process of being actually interrogated by the police in order for Miranda rights to apply. In other words, here's where it comes about. If you volunteer information, let's say you're in the back of the patrol car and no one's asking you any questions, and then you just start saying things. If you spout out information or you volunteer information to the police, that information can be used against you, okay? Those statements can be used against you, even if you are in custody. Now, what happens if the police did not read you your Miranda rights and you, in that situation I gave you before? Let's say you're all in a car, you're a passenger in a car, you didn't do anything wrong, right? Maybe the driver of the car had drugs, you didn't know about it. They get you all out of the car and you say, well, yeah, I knew that my buddy had drugs, but I didn't, they weren't mine. Well, they don't have to prove ownership. If you admit that you intentionally or knowingly exercise care, custody, or control of any of the drugs in that car, if those statements come into evidence, they might be able to have a case against you. But if they didn't read you your Miranda rights in that situation, absolutely, you've got an opportunity to get those statements thrown out, and now they're not going to be able to affirmatively link you to those drugs. I know I've thrown a lot at you here today, but I think it's important to understand how Miranda rights apply specifically to drug cases. So if you are facing a drug case in the Tarrant County or Dallas County area here in the Metroplex, and you would like the Hampton Law Firm to listen to your specific set of facts, give you a free case analysis, answer all of your questions, don't hesitate to give us a call at 817-877-5200. Now, I promised you if you waited around to the end of this video, I'd give you a free resource, a free ebook, What to Do If You've Been Charged with a Drug Crime in Texas. All you have to do is click the link down here below, input your information to us, and I'll be happy to email that entire guide over to you to help you in your situation. Thanks again for joining us today. Look forward to seeing you on our next video.